It's a shame that K through 12 education has come to this. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about a black educator in New York who suggests that black kids cannot think analytically. As a matter of fact, she said that critical thinking, analytical thinking, that's more of a European thing. Being able to take pieces of information, break it down and figure out what's happening, that's not really the quote unquote African way of doing things. Now, there is so much I want to say here. I'm not sure where to start. So before I go down into the rabbit hole, let's roll the clip. In this clip, you're going to see 3 black educators on screen. There's only one of them talking, but I want you to observe how the other 2 are reacting to what the person is saying that's talking. After we get done watching that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what was said there. Then I give you my 2 cents, my deep, detailed analysis, and then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
And I think Black people, we are relational people. Mm-hmm. We are people of context. Like, it's very Western and European to dissect and analyze and take apart things, whereas Afrocentric schooling or Afrocentric spirituality or African epistemology or ways of knowing, everything is connected. So this is why education is not working for so many students of color, because we are context-driven people. We can't tell a story without telling the 10 things that happened that led up to that moment. There's no such thing as like thinking isolation, isolating yourself from nature, from your family. Like, it's just not part of our ways of knowing and being in the world. So when we tap into the ways that we understand the world, students are able to make wonderful connections and unleash their brilliance and their wisdom.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, there's so much here. The elephant in the room for me is this. If she wants to say that critical thinking, analytical thinking, this is more of a Western thing and not really an African thing, then why is it that Asians, meaning Indian subcontinent, China, Japan, Korea, why is it that they do better in these soft skills in America than the so-called Westerner or the European? How does that really work? I mean, you can see it when you're talking about school, K through 12. You can see that the math scores. That's really where your critical thinking skills, when you're able to analyze certain things, that's where it really shows, is in your math scores, in my humble opinion, and your science as well, your STEM, because when you're talking about computer programming, advanced level math, you must have a very deep understanding of how to solve problems, how to analyze what's going on, how to take information. It could be a little bit of information, take the information, be able to break it down and figure out a way to expand on it, be able to figure out what's going on with the information, how to expand on it, how to innovate. Okay. A lot of that happens when you're talking about Asians and whatnot more than whites. So when you're talking about it's a Eurocentric thing, why is it that Asians do better than whites in America? It makes no sense. But beyond that, she said African. Now, I'm not African. I'm an American. Sure, I may have ancestors that go back to, like, I don't know, the 1400s in Africa, but I also have white ancestors as well. So am I going to ignore that part? How about, rather than saying I'm European, which I'm not, or African, which I'm not, I'll say I'm an American, which I am. I was born here, raised here. My great-great-great-great-grands on both sides come from America. Slavery or no slavery doesn't even matter. I'm an American, period. But if you want to go into the whole African thing, Miss Maria Akinelli, and by the way, is that a Nigerian name? It sounds kind of familiar, but I digress. All these Nigerian doctors, what's going on with that? How do you have a bunch of these Nigerian doctors that come from the continent of Africa, right over here in America? How are you going to be a doctor if you have no analytical skills, no critical thinking skills? How are you going to diagnose patients with anything? Oh, my brother, I'm sorry. Hey, I cannot do it for you. I cannot do it. I had to go over here to my brother, my white brother. He's going to diagnose you with your illness. I cannot do it because she says I do not have the critical thinking skills. Okay, my brother, go over there to that white man. That's what it's going to be, right? Because we don't have these skills. That's what you're trying to say. You know what? To me, what I hear when Miss Maria Akinelli speaks is failure. She's not been able to teach these kids properly, or maybe they come from households where they're not taught anything. Because one thing about it, the teacher can't succeed if there's two main things. First of all, if you have a bad teacher who's believing in this, nonsense that she believes in, she won't do very well, in my humble opinion. But also, you got to have kids that cooperate. And that means usually the parents are on point. If the parents don't really care, if the parents are giving them the public school system at the age of 5 or 6 years old with no ability to do anything, they can't read or write at all. They can't write their own name. They can't color. They can't count to 5, let alone count to 10. If they can't do anything at the age of 5 or 6, they're already behind, right? So if you have that going on and bad teachers, what you're going to get is failure. So rather than talking about that, Miss Akinelli, you want to talk about all this hocus pocus nonsense, talking about African and spirituality, a bunch of hoo-ha, a bunch of nonsense, right? That's what I'm looking at, because again, you get all these Nigerian doctors. How did that happen? If analytical thinking ain't really your bag, and that's more of the white guy thing. How do you have all these Asian doctors and lawyers and STEM people, computer programmers? How is that going on if it's a Eurocentric thing and they do better at that than anyone else? It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe I'm wrong. But as I close, I want to say this. If a teacher's not doing well, rather than trying to talk about racism and the white man, things of that nature, how about figure out what's going on in the real way, rather than talking about all this race stuff? And you know what? This was so-called anti-racist talk, which is the funny part. It's part of critical race theory. This is exactly why so many parents are really fighting back against critical race theory, because they see it for what it is. They see straight through it. Critical race theory, they talk about how they're against racism, but the exact opposite is true. They advocate for racism. They teach racism. It's a terrible thing, 1000%. And people like David Duke, Jared Taylor, a lot of the so-called race realists, they're probably on Miss Maria Akinelli's side. It's like, yeah, blacks, they can't really do it. The IQs ain't really strong. It's a genetic thing. So at what point do we go from being woke and so-called progressive to just racist? I think we've crossed that line a long time ago, and we're just now really observing it happen in real time, where we didn't really see it before. A lot of these Zoom calls and whatnot will be had behind closed doors. You'd never see it. But now we have a window into what's been going on for a very long time, and it's only intensifying as of late because of the attack on it. We're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to keep it. That's what's happening, in my humble opinion, at least. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about these teachers, or at least that one teacher talking about critical thinking, analytical thinking, not really being a thing that black kids can do? If you agree, disagree, whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at with it. I think that was pretty insulting. And I think rather than pointing the finger at where it should be, like if you have problems with being able to teach black kids these things, maybe you got bad parents and the kids don't care. They're not prepared to learn when they go to school. And maybe you're not a very good teacher. Okay. Maybe that's what's going on. And I think this is also part of Common Core. They're trying to talk about education in a way that it is not really. They're trying to say that the so-called Western way does not help black and brown kids. So they change it in a way that still doesn't help them. But since everyone is affected negatively by this, all the scores are kind of brought more in focus. So rather than having the whites and the Asians up here, blacks and Hispanics down here, you bring them like that. It's kind of like you still have whites and Asians on top, but it's less of a gap in between them because everybody's suffering through the nonsense. And the education, the ability of kids to perform after they get out of high school is going to be damaged. Or when it's time for college, you're not really prepared for college because you didn't get these courses when you needed them. So it's just overall a bad thing. it should be more of a meritocracy. If you're able to perform well in school, then so be it. If you can't perform well, then so be it. It doesn't matter what race perform well and what race doesn't, because when you just generalize everybody and say, oh, well, blacks, you can't do it, we're not going to teach you that, it's just not fair, because if you deny me that education because I'm black, now you're being racist against me. You're being discriminatory against me. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm not a big fan of that. Not in the least bit. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.